Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're setting our compass for India as we thoroughly unpack a fresh stack of headlines from July 2nd, 2025. This isn't about just, skimming the news. It's about really digging in, extracting those vital nuggets of insight, and trying to understand the deeper currents flowing beneath the day's events.
Exactly.
Think of this deep dive as, well, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about a pivotal day in the life of this incredibly vibrant and complex nation. We've got a fascinating array of topics to explore, everything from high-stakes cricket strategy and groundbreaking legal reforms to the intricate dance of regional alliances. It's a real snapshot,
Yeah.
a country in constant motion.
Precisely. Our mission today is to thoroughly unpack these diverse reports, meticulously connect the dots between seemingly disparate events, and help you grasp not just what is unfolding, but critically, why it matters, and what the broader implications might be for India and, well, really for the wider world.
Yeah.
We'll be looking at how strategic decisions, whether on a sports field or in diplomacy, are shaping the nation.
Okay, so if you're ready to explore the political shifts, the strategic challenges, the societal issues, and yeah, even the entertainment trends that are defining India right now, then let's immerse ourselves in India's daily pulse.
Kicking things off then, let's turn to a classic strategic dilemma. It's not from the halls of power exactly, but from the high-pressure world of sport. We're talking cricket, where India's captain Shubman Gill faces a really pivotal decision ahead of the second test against England. India is currently in a bit of a tricky spot, trailing 0-1 in the series, so this match in Edgbaston is, well, it's absolutely critical for them to bounce back.
Right, and the core of Gill's challenge revolves around picking a second spinner to partner with the formidable Ravindra Jadeja. The team's initial plan, and this was confirmed by the assistant coach and Gill himself, was definitely to play two spinners. That seems set, but the choice between the more containing Washington Sundar and the attacking Kuldeep Yadav got immensely complicated by the pitch conditions at Edgbaston in England.
The pitch, always the variable. Exactly. What makes this so intriguing is how directly the playing surface dictates strategy. It often forces a captain to, second-guess even the most carefully laid plans. Gill was noticeably reserved during his pre-match press conference. He was frequently sort of sidestepping direct questions about the final team lineup.
Very tight-lipped.
Very. His primary concern, as he kind of subtly indicated, was that the Edgbaston surface might offer significant help to the pacers, the fast bowlers, but maybe only during the early sessions on day one. And that scenario presents a genuine strategic problem. If India bowls first, a second spinner might be, well, underutilized during those crucial initial hours when the seamers are expected to be most effective. It could leave the team feeling a bit unbalanced.
And that really highlights the pressure, doesn't it? Gill specifically underscored the challenge of managing that second spinner in those early conditions where the pitch might not immediately turn. Yet he also openly acknowledged Ravindra Jadeja's crucial role in the last match, where he consistently created opportunities. He even sort of conceded that fielding a second spinner in the previous game might have, and I quote, tilted the game more decisively in India's favor. It's a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of situation.
It really is. And adding layers to this strategic puzzle, Gill was seen inspecting the pitch not just once, but twice after his press conference. First with head coach Gautam Gambhir, and then separately with chief selector Ajit Agarkar. The fact that he then had individual chats with each of them suggests some intense, probably quite last-minute deliberations were happening.
Reading the tea leaves or the grass blades, perhaps?
You could say that. Meanwhile, both Kuldeep Yadav and Arshdeep Singh, who didn't play in the first test, were actively training. That clearly signals that the final decisions were very much still up in the air, and, a tactical shift was definitely a possibility. You have to wonder, right, how does a young captain like Gill navigate such high-stakes tactical ambiguity, especially under the intense gaze of the media?
That's a really potent question because it also bumps up against history. Gill was pressed by reporters on India's pretty dismal Edgbaston test record. I think it's 7 losses in 8 matches there. That's worrying. He dismissed its relevance quite forcefully, though. He asserted a strong belief in his squad's ability, regardless of past results or who they were playing. But, despite that outward confidence, you could feel the underlying tension about the team's strategic approach. It definitely lingered.
You look at the broader picture. This situation is more than just about one cricket match. It's kind of a micro example of a macro challenge, really. It's about leadership and conviction versus the weight of historical baggage. Gill's visible uncertainty, even with his confident statements, reveals maybe a deeper tension within Indian cricket itself. It's this ongoing struggle, isn't it? Reconciling a powerful, often instinctive style of play which is deeply ingrained in the team's identity with the increasingly data-driven strategic demands of modern sport. And this constant negotiation is often at the mercy of unpredictable conditions like the pitch. So this isn't just about this one match's outcome. It kind of reflects India's broader evolution in global sport, where tradition meets modern analytics. Finding that right balance between containment and aggression in a high-stakes series becomes absolutely paramount.
Okay, from the cricket pitch, let's pivot to the political arena. Another kind of strategic play is unfolding here, this time involving the Aam Aadmi Party, or AAP. They're making headlines with some pretty significant by-election victories that are certainly causing ripples across India's political landscape.
Yes. The key takeaway here is that AAP has secured some impressive wins in by-elections. One in Ludhiana West, which is in Punjab, and another in Visvadar in Gujarat. What makes these victories particularly noteworthy is that they were apparently achieved with wider margins than in the 2022 general elections. That definitely indicates growing momentum, maybe a shift in public sentiment.
Wider margins, that's significant.
It is, especially given that these wins happen even in areas generally considered strongholds for the ruling party, the BJP. So this undoubtedly bolsters AAP's national ambitions. The Aam Aadmi Party, initially seen mainly as a Delhi-focused movement launched by Arvind Kejriwal back in 2012 after his big anti-corruption crusade, well, it has since expanded its footprint quite significantly. It now governs the state of Punjab and has considerable influence in states like Gujarat, where these wins really testify to their expanding appeal.
And this revival is particularly crucial for AAP, isn't it? Because it follows a very significant setback for them. Their defeat in the February 2025 Delhi Assembly elections, where the BJP actually managed to end their decade-long rule in the capital. That loss was quite severe, I recall. Kejriwal himself and several senior leaders lost their seats amid allegations of corruption. Some even faced jail time. It led to Atishi temporarily taking over as chief minister, which really highlighted the party's vulnerability back then.
Right, and the analysis of that Delhi defeat offers a really insightful perspective. It was largely attributed to a growing middle-class discontent. While AAP's welfare schemes, things like free electricity, water, improved public health care had successfully catered to lower-income groups, the salaried segments, the middle class, often felt neglected. They perceived that these benefits didn't directly address their economic concerns or aspirations. And this raises an important question for any political party, really. How do you effectively balance those populist policies, which often focus on direct benefits for specific groups, with the broader economic appeal needed to secure and keep support across all sections of society? It's a perennial challenge.
Yeah, that balancing act. And this is where it gets really interesting now. These recent by-poll successes have clearly reinvigorated the party. Leaders like Atishi are now confidently declaring these wins as, robust endorsements of their effective governance model. And, Kejriwal's strategic unpredictability speculation is already growing about a possible entry for him into the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of parliament. He'd refused before, but now...
That would be a significant move, signaling a shift in his political trajectory, perhaps. And looking ahead, these recent wins might also embolden AAP to contest future elections independently, potentially distancing itself from its current coalition with the Congress Party under the broader NDA alliance. That could certainly reshape electoral dynamics in several states.
Injecting a new competitive element.
Exactly. So when we consider the crucial 2027 assembly elections coming up, AAP's rebound, despite those significant prior setbacks, clearly positions it as a continued and, frankly, powerful force in national politics. This resurgence seems largely driven by their distinctive governance model that focus on direct public service delivery, grassroots engagement. It's a classic political comeback story, but one of very real and substantial implications for the national political landscape and the delicate balance of power in India. It also maybe exposes a critical vulnerability in the BJP's national strategy. Their populist policies might not fully capture the middle-class imagination, creating an opening for alternatives focused on direct service beyond just traditional welfare.
Okay, shifting our gaze outwards now, we come across a deeply human story. One that really underscores both the enduring allure of the American dream and the profound, often tragic risks that come with pursuing it. This concerns Indian migrants apprehended while attempting to enter the U.S. illegally.
Yeah, a really significant trend has emerged here. The number of Indians apprehended dropped sharply by a dramatic 70% in the first 5 months of 2025 compared to the same period in 2024. That's a huge shift. Data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the U.S. CBP, clearly shows this change. It reports a fall from around 34,500 arrests during the previous Biden administration's time to just over 10,000 during Donald Trump's recent return to office. The immediate reason for this sharp decline seems to be a heightened crackdown under the Trump administration. This has significantly disrupted migrant smuggling networks, particularly those based in Gujarat, which has been a key source to this outbound migration from India. It makes you ponder, doesn't it? How quickly and profoundly policy changes, or even just the perception of policy changes, can impact human movement globally.
Absolutely. But despite these heightened risks and the increased enforcement, the human element of the story reveals that many Indians remain just stubbornly determined to chase what they perceive as the American dream. It's a powerful pull. Among those caught, tragically, there were at least 30 unaccompanied minors, some allegedly abandoned by adult companions, or maybe even deliberately sent separately by families hoping for more lenient treatment under U.S. rules for children. And interestingly, the smugglers themselves, clearly anticipating Trump's re-election and his tougher stance, apparently began pausing or significantly scaling back their operations in late 2024. This preemptive action caused the daily apprehension rates of Indian nationals to plummet from an average of about 230 down to just 69. It shows how responsive these illicit networks are, almost like a market.
It does. And this unfortunate reality brings the human cost into sharp focus, especially when these desperate journeys go wrong. There was a truly tragic case back in May 2025 that starkly illustrates the dangers. A boat capsized near Del Mar, California. It resulted in the deaths of two children from Gujarat, 14-year-old Prince and 10-year-old Mahi. Their parents survived, but with severe injuries, and this isn't isolated. At least 9 Indian migrants have reportedly died at the U.S. border this year alone. It paints a very grim picture of the perils involved. Looking broader, overall U.S. illegal immigration arrests across all nationalities also fell sharply during this period, so it indicates a wider trend. Still, Gujarat specifically remains a prominent departure hub for these journeys, with smuggling syndicates leveraging these long-established overland routes, often winding through Central America.
So what we can infer from this, I suppose, is that while tougher immigration policies have indeed curtailed the inflow, they certainly haven't diminished the migrants' desperation or that powerful allure of the U.S. as a land of perceived opportunity. It highlights a stark truth, doesn't it? Policy changes, however swift, don't just erase the American dream. They might just reroute human desperation, pushing vulnerable people into even more perilous clandestine channels. And tragically, that just escalates the human cost of migration. It's a stark reminder of the complex and often tragic global dynamics of human movement. Speaking of the U.S. and India, let's now delve into a more formal aspect of their relationship: bilateral defense cooperation. It appears to be deepening quite significantly and strategically.
Yes, the key development here is that India's Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth recently held a phone conversation. It was explicitly aimed at advancing bilateral defense cooperation, with a particular focus, interestingly, on industrial collaboration. The intriguing aspect here is the precise focus. This wasn't just a general chat. It centered on concrete, practical steps: expanding joint military initiatives, sharing logistics capabilities, improving interoperability between their armed forces, and, perhaps most importantly, integrating their defense supply chains. Both leaders expressly agreed to build on the existing momentum of their strategic partnership, underlining its mutually beneficial and long-term nature. It signals a desire for deeper, more practical engagement, moving beyond just high-level talk to tangible defense and industrial integration.
And Singh made sure to emphasize India's deep appreciation for America's consistent support in India's fight against terrorism. That remains a critical pillar of their strategic alignment. He also praised Hegseth's proactive leadership in strengthening these defense ties, highlighting the personal rapport being built, which, can be crucial in international relations.
It really can. And it's worth noting this was actually their third conversation since Hegseth took office in January 2025. That itself underscores the priority both nations are placing on this relationship. During their talk, Hegseth formally invited Singh for an in-person meeting in the U.S. to further enhance cooperation. Such an invitation, especially coming so early in a new secretary's tenure, typically indicates a strong desire for continuity and deepening engagement. Moving beyond just phone calls to face-to-face strategizing. Historically, India's defense procurement was heavily reliant on Russia, but over the past decade or so, there's been a clear strategic pivot towards diversifying partners, and the U.S. has emerged as a key player. This current emphasis on industrial collaboration represents an evolution, really, from simple buyer-seller dynamics to true co-development and integration.
Right. And Singh also took to X, formerly Twitter, to share some insights from their discussion. He said it involved reviewing ongoing initiatives and actively exploring new areas for collaboration.
He specifically highlighted capacity building as a key focus, which suggests a move towards more self-reliant defense production within India may be supported by U.S. expertise and technology transfer.
Looking at the broader picture, this dialogue reflects both nations' clear intent to deepen cooperation beyond just the traditional military dimensions. They're specifically prioritizing defense manufacturing and technological integration. It underscores the evolving Indo-U.S. partnership's increasingly crucial role in regional and global security, especially among what they often call like-minded partners in the Indo-Pacific. Xi himself expressed optimism about meeting Hegseth soon to push forward their shared vision of a secure, cooperative Indo-Pacific, a region of immense strategic importance to both, especially given growing geopolitical complexities. This shift from just transactional arms deals to deeper integration, focusing on building India's own defense industrial base with U.S. support, it signifies a maturing and more robust strategic alliance.
Okay, and where there's cooperation, there's often intense competition, especially in the geopolitical landscape. Our next story highlights a significant and potentially game-changing move by China and Pakistan.
Yeah, what's emerged is that China and Pakistan, along with Bangladesh apparently, are spearheading efforts to create a brand new regional alliance. It's explicitly modeled after the existing South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, or SAARC. This proposed organization, centered squarely around South Asia-China cooperation, is being openly viewed as a strategic counter to India's considerable influence in the region. It also seems to be a direct response to China's maybe diminishing returns at other forums, like the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, where its regional goals might not be fully met due to various internal dynamics.
Interesting, so this immediately prompts the question. What's the current state of SAARC itself? Why might a new alliance be seen as necessary?
That's the key background here. SAARC has been largely dormant since 2016. This followed India's boycott of a summit that was planned for Islamabad after the Uri terrorist attack. That move by India was notably backed by Bhutan, Afghanistan, and Sri Lanka, which caused further stagnation. The last fully attended SAARC meeting actually happened way back in 2014 in Kathmandu. SAARC's struggles have been multifaceted, really, often plagued by bilateral disputes, particularly between India and Pakistan, and a lack of consensus among member states, which has just hindered effective regional cooperation. So this new move by China and Pakistan looks clearly designed to fill that regional vacuum and create a new power dynamic.
And what's particularly interesting is the speed they're moving at. A formal meeting to launch this new alliance is already scheduled for August in Islamabad. They're certainly not wasting time, and apparently countries like Sri Lanka, Maldives, and Afghanistan are being actively courted to join this nascent bloc. Afghanistan and Maldives have reportedly already given their in-principle approval, which demonstrates China's considerable diplomatic leverage, especially in those nations. These countries, often relying on foreign aid or investment, can be susceptible to such offers.
Absolutely. China holds substantial economic sway in the region, particularly through its massive $60 billion investment in Pakistan via the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or CPEC. This ambitious network of infrastructure projects, part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, doesn't just boost Pakistan's economy, it also gives China strategic access to the Arabian Sea. This economic leverage is allowing China to position Pakistan as the principal facilitator and a crucial partner in this new bloc. According to Avinash Mohanty, a former Indian intelligence official and envoy to Pakistan, China is effectively emulating the U.S. model of power projection by strategically expanding its regional coalition network, rather than just relying on bilateral ties. This isn't just about economics, it's about building a geopolitical counterweight to existing regional power structures.
So the broader implication here seems pretty clear. This alliance appears designed quite deliberately to reshape South Asian geopolitics by drawing India's neighbors closer into China's sphere of influence. This move poses a direct and significant strategic challenge to India's traditional regional leadership, creating a new and potentially enduring geopolitical fault line. It's a major play in the grand chess game of international relations, one that India will undoubtedly be watching very, very closely as it seeks to maintain its influence in South Asia.
Okay, let's take a quick but insightful turn from geopolitics to the fascinating world of popular culture. This next headline gives us a clear picture of what Indian audiences are watching right now, and it presents quite a striking contrast.
Yeah, the key development here is that Amazon Prime Video's Panchayat Season 4 has just soared to the very top of India's 2025 OTT charts. For those who might not know, OTT stands for over the top, referring to streaming services like Netflix and Prime Video that deliver content directly over the internet, bypassing traditional TV. And the viewership numbers for Panchayat 4 are genuinely impressive. It secured 8.8 million views. That significantly surpasses Netflix's highly anticipated Squid Game Season 3, which garnered about 4.8 million views.
Wow, Panchayat beating Squid Game, that's something.
It really is. What's truly fascinating here is how Panchayat Season 4, produced by The Viral Fever, or TVF, and directed by Deepak Kumar Mishra and Akshat Vijayvargiya, continues to immerse viewers in that fictional rural village of Fulera. The season's centerpiece, a heated and unpredictable local village council, or panchayat, election featuring Manju Devi and Kranti Devi battling for leadership, is clearly resonating deeply with audiences. The storyline skillfully blends political rivalry, ambition, and emotional depth, all while preserving the show's signature subtle humor and relatable everyday scenarios. It reflects a deep connection with local narratives and the realities of rural India. It shows that authentic, homegrown stories can achieve massive success, even against huge global titles.
And the returning cast remains a huge draw, right? Lead actor Jitendra Kumar reprises his beloved role as Abhishek Tripathi, joined by veteran actors Neena Gupta and Raghubir Yadav. That ensemble dynamic has clearly kept audiences hooked, drawn by the relatable characters and their genuine struggles. The season's narrative arc, reflecting escalating tensions and personal stakes within the village, is what seems to have driven it to become the most viewed Indian OTT original so far this year. Its success really underscores a broader trend in India, where content rooted in local settings, depicting the lives of ordinary people, is finding a massive and loyal audience.
And in stark contrast, you have Squid Game Season 3. The final chapter of that globally massive Korean survival drama actually received more mixed reviews, despite huge anticipation. While the creator Hwang Dong-hyuk returned and Lee Jung-jae reprised his iconic role as Song Gi-hun, this season delved into the origin story of Hwang In-ho, the enigmatic frontman, and revealed the fates of other characters. Its reception kind of highlights the perennial challenge, doesn't it? Concluding a high-profile series while meeting immense global expectations. Sometimes the initial novelty wears off, or maybe narrative choices in later seasons just divide even the most dedicated fans.
So what we can gather from this, I guess, is that the simultaneous success of Panchayat and the significant, albeit mixed, reception of Squid Game really underscore the growing appetite among Indian audiences for incredibly diverse storytelling. From grounded, relatable, rural satire to high-stakes, psychological thrillers, it seems Indian viewers are embracing a really wide spectrum of content. It truly demonstrates the cross-cultural resonance and the global reach of today's digital entertainment landscape. Local stories can not only find massive success, but sometimes even outperform international blockbusters because of their authentic narrative and that deep connection with the domestic audience. It's a fascinating testament to the power of reflecting everyday lives. Okay, from entertainment, let's now dive into something absolutely fundamental to any society. The justice system. Union Home Minister Amit Shah has been making some, well, pretty bold claims about India's new criminal laws.
Yes. The key announcement here is that Shah has lauded India's 3 new criminal laws, asserting they will fundamentally reform the country's judicial system. Speaking at an event titled A Golden Year of Trust in the Justice System, Shah articulated the goal very clearly: to make justice affordable, accessible, and approachable for every citizen. He emphasized that this updated legal framework is specifically designed to eliminate the long-standing fear surrounding the filing of first information reports, or FIRs, those initial documents filed with police to start an investigation. Instead, he aims to replace that fear with public confidence in swift and fair justice delivery.
So moving away from fear towards confidence.
That's the stated aim. According to Shah, these reforms will lead to a more consistent, transparent, and simplified judicial process. He openly acknowledged that a major failing of the previous system was its unpredictability. Citizens were often left uncertain about when or whether justice would actually be served, which naturally led to a loss of faith. One might then ask, though, how effectively can such comprehensive systemic overhauls translate into tangible, practical improvements for the average citizen? What will be the real-world impact on judicial efficiency and trust? That's the big question.
And Shah projected that this legislative overhaul, enacted under Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, signals nothing less than the dawn of a golden era of governance, one rooted deeply in social, economic, and political justice for all Indians. Marking the first anniversary of the law's implementation, Shah reinforced that this transformation represents a generational shift in how justice is administered in India. The aspiration seems to be moving from a system often perceived as complex and slow to one that's responsive and understandable.
Looking at the broader landscape, these new laws are undeniably part of the government's wider strategy to significantly enhance public trust in legal institutions. They're attempting this by streamlining legal procedures, making them more predictable, and trying to ensure greater accountability across the entire system, from police investigations right through to court proceedings. Shah also noted that these changes are intended to instill long-term faith in the rule of law, making the justice system not just effective but genuinely trusted by every citizen. The event itself served as a platform to celebrate this evolving relationship between the state and the public through a justice system that aspires to be genuinely people-centric. The key insight here, I think, is that this is an ambitious overhaul aimed at fundamentally rebuilding trust in a judicial system that has historically been perceived by many as unpredictable and inaccessible.
Okay, sticking with law and order, but with a significant twist towards digital regulation. Our next headline comes from the southern state of Karnataka. They are looking to criminalize what they're calling fake news.
Yes, this is a key development. Karnataka is drafting pioneering legislation to criminalize the dissemination of so-called fake news. And the proposed penalties are quite severe, potentially up to 7 years in prison and hefty fines. That would certainly act as a strong deterrent. Officials describe this legislation as a crucial step to curb what they term digital information disorder. They specifically cite recent incidents in coastal districts where misinformation allegedly sparked public unrest, highlighting a clear concern about the real-world, destabilizing impact of online falsehoods. The legislation aims to establish dedicated regulatory bodies and special courts specifically designed to enforce its provisions. That indicates a serious commitment to implementation, not just policy on paper.
So dedicated bodies and special courts, that sounds quite structured.
It does. What's particularly noteworthy, though, is the scope of this bill. In addition to targeting false online content, it also seeks to penalize content deemed anti-feminist or promoting superstition. This reflects the government's broader intent to regulate digital speech across a wider range of social and cultural issues, going beyond just political misinformation. This proposed law positions Karnataka as the first Indian state to independently introduce such sweeping measures against misinformation. While the Indian federal government has introduced some regulatory efforts, Karnataka's approach marks a much more aggressive and localized strategy. And this brings up an inherently critical question, doesn't it? What is the appropriate balance between curbing misinformation, which can clearly be harmful, and protecting fundamental freedoms of speech and expression in a democracy where robust debate is essential?
That's the crux of it. Supporters argue quite strongly that the law will indeed help maintain social harmony and effectively combat harmful digital narratives, especially in regions considered vulnerable to communal tension, where a small piece of misinformation can quickly ignite widespread unrest. But this is where it gets really interesting and contentious. Critics, including prominent civil liberties organizations like the Internet Freedom Foundation, are raising serious alarms. They warn that the broad and frankly subjective interpretation of terms like fake news or even anti-feminist content could very easily threaten constitutional protections around free speech and expression. The concern is that such wide definitions could be used to stifle legitimate criticism or diverse viewpoints under the guise of combating misinformation.
Exactly. So, looking at the broader landscape as this debate intensifies, the legislation clearly raises critical concerns about striking that proper balance between public order and individual liberties. If it passes, it could set a significant precedent for other Indian states grappling with the growing challenges of social media regulation and online disinformation in what is a very politically and culturally diverse democracy. The key insight here is that this is a pioneering but highly contentious legal move. It truly tests the limits of digital regulation and free speech, and its outcome is poised to have far-reaching implications across India. Next, we turn to a truly tragic event that highlights ongoing serious safety concerns in India's industrial sectors. A devastating explosion and fire occurred at a pharmaceutical factory in Telangana. Yeah, the details are chilling. An explosion and subsequent fire happened on June 30, 2025, at the Sagachi Industries pharmaceutical factory in Telangana, southern India. The incident resulted in at least 36 to 39 deaths and injured about 36 more workers. It's just a profound loss of life, a significant industrial disaster. The tragedy took place in the plant's spray dryer unit. That's where raw materials are processed into fine powder for pharmaceutical use. The sheer force of the blast apparently caused the entire factory structure to collapse. This complicated rescue efforts immensely.
Oh, the whole structure collapsed.
That's what the reports say. It required specialized teams for DNA identification because the severe burns and mutilations suffered by many victims made recognition almost impossible. At the time of the explosion, reports indicate more than 140 people were working inside the facility. While many managed to escape, a significant number were trapped. Emergency responders and fire services worked tirelessly through the debris, recovering bodies, searching for survivors. As of July 1st, at least 25 bodies were yet to be identified. It really underscores the scale of the tragedy and the immense difficulty faced by those on the ground, trying to bring closure to the families and communities affected.
Just awful. Did they know the cause yet?
The exact cause remains undetermined right now, though initial clues, according to reports, suggest a possible pressure buildup in a dryer system, potentially leading to a dust explosion, which is a known hazard in certain industrial processes. In response, the Telangana state government has promptly formed a committee to launch a full investigation, promising to uncover the precise circumstances. Sagachi Industries has, understandably, suspended operations at the affected plant for 90 days due to the extensive damage. That will have significant economic repercussions too. What we can gather from this, looking at the broader landscape, is that this incident marks the highest fire-related death toll in the state of Telangana in over 25 years. This tragedy starkly highlights persistent and serious safety concerns within India's pharmaceutical manufacturing sector. And this sector is, ironically, a critical global supplier of generic drugs. So incidents like this can have international implications for supply chains and global health. India has, unfortunately, a history of industrial accidents, often attributed to issues like lax safety regulations, inadequate enforcement, maybe insufficient worker training. This incident serves as a grim reminder that despite its vital role in global drug supply, there are still significant gaps in ensuring the safety of its industrial workforce. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed condolences and announced compensation for the victims' families, acknowledging the national impact. The key insight here is just that stark reminder of critical industrial safety gaps in a vital global industry with profound human consequences.
Okay, from tragedy, we shift back to the ever-heated political theater, where the temperature is consistently high. The Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, has intensified its criticism of opposition leader Tejashwi Yadav and the broader NDA alliance.
Yes, the central allegation here comes from BJP national spokesperson Gaurav Bhatia. He has claimed that the Rashtriya Janata Dal, or RJD, the Congress Party, and the broader India Bloc alliance are prioritizing controversial practices. He specifically named Sharia law, the Islamic legal framework, polygamy, the practice of having more than one spouse, and halala, a debated practice concerning remarriage after divorce in some Islamic contexts. Bhatia then escalated this rhetoric, suggesting their ultimate goal is, and this is his quote, to turn India into an Islamic state. He branded these parties as Mamazwadis, a term implying favoritism towards specific communities, basically framing their politics as inherently divisive. He sharply contrasted this with what he asserted was Prime Minister Modi's vision, which he said focuses instead on empowering Dalits, women, and backward sections of society, positioning the BJP as the truly inclusive party. This kind of rhetoric is a common feature in Indian political discourse, especially leading up to elections.
Right, framing the opponent. And Bhatia cited specific instances to back up these claims.
He did. He condemned recent remarks reportedly made by Tejashwi Yadav about discarding the Waqf Act, interpreting them as direct proof of the RJD's alleged communal intent. The Waqf Act governs properties donated for religious or charitable purposes in Islam, so any talk of discarding it can be politically sensitive. Bhatia further cited an incident where a photograph of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a revered architect of India's constitution and champion of Dalit rights, was placed near Lalu Prasad Yadav's feet, apparently without objection from either Lalu or Tejashwi. Bhatia presented this as symbolic of their alleged disregard for constitutional values. According to him, this visual wasn't accidental but reflected a deeper mindset within their political ideology. It makes you consider the strategic use of symbolism and specific alleged incidents in political discourse, particularly when the aim is to discredit opponents and rally one's own base. So when we look at the broader landscape, BJP leaders consistently continue to position themselves as staunch defenders of constitutional values and social inclusivity. They actively contrast their stance with what they portray as divisive, religion-centric politics by the opposition. These remarks are undoubtedly part of a wider strategy to consolidate support ahead of upcoming elections. They're framing the BJP as the party of national unity and constitutional integrity. The key insight here really is the strategic use of this culturally charged rhetoric to frame electoral narratives and consolidate power, often moving away from direct policy debate. This approach frequently seeks to energize a specific voter base by drawing clear ideological lines.
Okay, finally, let's conclude our deep dive on a truly optimistic note. Progress and innovation, particularly in the critical field of healthcare.
India is making a significant move to bolster its capabilities in clinical trials.
Yes, and this is important. A critical reality to understand is that India, despite its huge population and significant disease burden, currently conducts only a tiny fraction, just about 1.5% of global clinical trials. What's more, early phase trials, especially phase 1 trials, are particularly underrepresented. This is a crucial bottleneck.
Right.
Phase 1 trials are that first stage of testing a new drug or treatment in humans, mainly to check safety, find a safe dose, identify side effects.
So a real gap there.
A massive gap. To address this, the Indian Council of Medical Research, or ICMR, has launched a vital initiative, the ICMR Network for Phase 1 clinical trials. The fundamental aim here is to build public sector infrastructure that specifically supports early-stage drug development. And importantly, focusing on treatments that might not be prioritized by the global pharmaceutical industry, but are critically needed for India's specific health challenges. The network itself is governed by an interministerial steering committee and supported by specialized advisory bodies overseeing site operations and the selection of clinical leads. What's particularly insightful here is the systematic approach. After a rigorous evaluation, 4 institutions were chosen for their demonstrated experience and readiness to conduct Phase 1 trials. These centers are intended to share knowledge and resources, operate as national assets, open to both public and private entities for research. And ICMR is providing long-term funding for infrastructure and manpower, signaling a sustained commitment, which is crucial for this kind of long-term science.
That sounds really comprehensive beyond just building the facilities.
Exactly. The network is also actively working with a pipeline of lead molecules in crucial therapeutic areas like oncology, vaccines, and cell therapies. These molecules were meticulously selected based on clinical need, their readiness for trial, their innovation potential. Additionally, something called the MedTech Mitra portal has been set up to support innovators through the development process, and the Intent Network will manage later phase trials. So it creates a comprehensive ecosystem, really, designed to accelerate drug development from concept right through to patient. This ambitious effort is inspired partly by China's successful model for boosting its pharma research. And it clearly reflects broader strategic changes within India's biopharma sector, a significant shift from just producing generic drugs towards fostering genuine indigenous innovation. Looking at the broader landscape, this initiative, while it will certainly face formidable challenges navigating regulatory complexity, overcoming fragmented coordination across agencies, it represents a truly significant step forward for India. The first trials under this network are actually set to launch in 2025, marking a tangible beginning. Ultimately, this program seeks to strengthen India's position in global drug development and crucially address its unique health priorities with homegrown innovation. The key insight here is that this is a systematic and ambitious push for self-reliance and a greater global contribution in a critical sector. It moves India beyond its historical role as primarily the pharmacy to the world for generics towards becoming a hub for novel drug discovery. A really positive development.
Phew. Okay, what a deep dive that was into India's daily pulse. From those strategic choices on a cricket pitch to the complex landscape of legal reforms, the intricate geopolitical maneuvering, and those innovative leaps in healthcare. It's abundantly clear that India is a country of just immense dynamism and ongoing transformation. Every single headline, even the seemingly small ones, gives us a profound glimpse into a much larger story.
Indeed. We've explored how domestic politics intricately intertwine with international relations, how cultural preferences subtly shape digital consumption, and how critical decisions on public safety and justice profoundly impact millions of lives. Each headline truly serves as a window into a larger narrative, offering invaluable insights into the multifaceted forces shaping a nation of over 1 billion people. The key, as always, is to try and discern the patterns, understand the underlying motivations, and consider the so what for each piece of information we encounter.
And that's truly the beauty of looking beyond the surface, isn't it? We sincerely hope you walk away from this deep dive feeling not just more informed, but perhaps even more curious about the interconnected forces shaping the world around us. It's a truly fascinating time for India and for anyone watching its evolution on the global stage.
Absolutely. Cultivating this kind of nuanced understanding helps build a far richer, more accurate picture of global events. It moves us beyond just simple headlines to a genuine comprehension of the complex layers at play.
So as you reflect on today's headlines, maybe consider this. How might these seemingly disparate events, a cricket selection dilemma, a political party's comeback, the formation of a new regional alliance, or even a chart-topping TV show, how might they collectively paint a more complete and evolving picture of India's identity on the global stage? What specific insights or connections truly stand out to you from today's deep dive? We've been your guides on this deep dive into India's daily pulse. Until next time, keep that curiosity alive.